What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another video, this time mainly focused on vintage Kenner Star Wars figures, loose graded. And I did sneak in a few mint on cards that I couldn't quite fit into my video the other day, just to catch another couple of data points. But there were a number of really nice loose graded figures that I wanted to cover today. And I've talked to a few folks over in the UK, and they've said in general that loose graded figures have really dropped a lot this month. Whether it's the holidays or what, I don't know. Over here, there were a few deals to be had, and I'm going to go through some of them. But it's mainly for the common figures. For the uncommon figures like this one that we're getting ready to talk about, prices remain really strong, if not stronger than ever. And I don't see any sort of slowdown on the package side of things, mint on card. And we've already talked about that in yesterday's video with some of those mint on cards. The vast majority of those sold for well above what I expected to be the final price. But the same thing can be said for some of the more rare loose graded variants, starting with this one. This is the AFA 85 Hollow Cheek Sand People. These mainly came, to my knowledge, on Return of the Jedi card backs, 65 backs, 77 backs. And what the hollow cheeks are, you can see those cheeks below his eyes there where they have little hollowed out portions. Those only came on later card backs, to my knowledge, and so they're kind of limited in number. It's kind of considered a more rare variant for this Sand People. You've got the long tubes, the long eye tubes. You've got the hollow cheeks. You've got the dark brown bandoliers and paint, which is what I believe this one has also. But the hollow for the loose graded variants that were standard Hong Kong produced, this is easily the most expensive. I'm excluding like foreign figures like the Spanish Pac, things like that. But $765 took that one home. That one just closed 2 or 3 days ago. And, you know, it had the older case, but that did not matter. And we've seen a couple of these sell this year that were AFA 85s, and they were about that same price, $750 to $800. Here's one that, you know, kind of harkens back to what I just alluded to, that over in the UK, some prices were actually still pretty reasonable for loose graded figures, at least over in the UK. And this is an example of one. This was a Spanish PBP, brand new case style from UKG. I love the accessory case they did for this one. And it was a Spanish PBP. This is the circle on foot variant. There's also a floating D for the made in Hong Kong on the back of the leg, where it's just a D that's kind of floating in a weird position. So there's 2 or 3 different. There's like a dark pouch. There's an eggplant colored pouch. There's 2 or 3 or 4 different Spanish Chewbacca's to choose from. But this is one of the most common. This has got a circle on his foot. I'm not sure if he did a photo of the bottom of his foot or not. If so, I'll show it to you. Here we go. So you can see right there on the left-hand foot, you can see right there, it's got a little foot, or excuse me, a little circle on the bottom of that foot there. It's kind of like a weird EPM mark, you know, manufacturing kind of mark that's part of the mold process. So one of the more common Spanish figures, but that still sold for $108. It was a UKG 85%. That was a great deal for somebody in the UK who didn't have to pay global shipping prices, but a really nice example there that sold for a very reasonable price. On the other end of the spectrum, we've got, you know, what's considered, you know, a pretty nice mini grail, so to speak. I consider it a mini grail. And that's the double telescoping Luke, which came with this inner filament that extended all the way out. And they were only produced on very early Luke Skywalker, Ben Kenobi, and Darth Vader figures. The Luke is the most common to have this double telescoping saber, and it graded 70. You know, as a reference point, when I bought mine was an unmarked engineering pilot, and I paid about the same price. So for a standard retail release version of this in a lower grade, they're now going for $15.50. So that's the kind of the going rate. And, you know, I'll also say this. We've talked about this seller in the past and how some of the auctions seem kind of iffy. I would say that the vast majority, if not all of the auctions from this past week for him, for this seller, the prices seem very reasonable. So I think you can chalk up a lot of the weird prices and the high prices that we've seen for some of those items to just people overpaying. I mean, I felt very comfortable with most of these auctions, if not all of these auctions, you know, seeming pretty reasonable and kind of well within market. $15.50 seems like a lot for an AFA 70 double telescoping Luke, but we just saw another one that sold for quite a bit higher than that. That was an AFA 85. So I don't think that you know, this AFA 70 final sales price is outside of market value in the current environment. Here was another one. This was a a lot of you folks like to talk about, hey, can we see some lower grade items? Well, here's one for you. This was a 65 plus, no dent in boot, blue snaggletooth. So really nice. I thought that was a harsh grade. I mean, it seemed to be in pretty good shape. But again, this has the same defects that we've talked about. It's got some wear around the boots, which is pretty noticeable, and then the torso again is discolored. It's almost like a greenish color, which is the most common problem with the blue snags. But this is the no toe dent version, which is a little bit more desirable, a little harder to find. That one sold for $455, so it gives you a little baseline for a lower grade blue snags. This was another one that from that same seller that I thought probably sold low, if anything. This was a gray stitch Jawa. There's the gray stitch on the label. This is one I don't have. I've got a number of different stitch color variations in my collection, green and purple and things like that. But the gray stitch, I think, is actually pretty hard to find. And that was an AFA 80 that sold for $209.50. I thought that was a great price for a pretty tough stitch color variation to find for that Jawa. Couple of Boba Fett's, pretty desirable Boba Fett sold. This was a PBP light blue painted knee. So this is the Spanish-made Boba Fett that you found on like tri-logo cards. That one sold for $579 and change. It was an AFA 75. So there's a number. Like I said, there's a number of different PBP variations. You got ones where this dart is painted versus unpainted. You've got this shin piece that is either painted or unpainted, and then you also have different belt color variations. There's a brown belt like this one. There's a darker, almost black belt, and then there's a bitone where the torso piece does not match the same color as the legs and chest portion of the paint. So there's like 4 or 5 different variations you can get. But anyway, that one sold for about $580. And then this one was another desirable light blue painted helmet Taiwan Boba Fett. We just saw one that sold for about $900 at this grade. It was an AFA 80 plus. This one was also 80 plus, and it sold for about the same price, $910. So those continue to go up in value. This is another one sold over across the pond. This was a no COO, Luke Skywalker in his Hoth gear, and it was an a UKG 85%. Really tough to find the Luke Hoth in high grade just because they yellow so easily. And this is the no COO version, so these came on like Palatoy Tri-Logo cards or just straight Palatoy cards, and not easy to find, especially on the Tri-Logo card. You're probably talking a couple $1,000 for a near mint plus mint on card Tri-Logo. Anyway, this loose graded example sold for about $240 US, 180 pounds. Same seller again had an AFA 85 R2D2 sensor scope. Anything R2D2 is just going through the stratosphere, as we've known for a while now. But this is just the more common ESB version of the R2D2, and that one still sold for $305. I mean, a year ago this was more like $160 to $180. So they just continue to go up. A couple of bounty hunters also sold from that same seller. This was an AFA 85 Forlom. I thought that was a great deal, $125 with the brand new casing style. I was tempted to bid on that one because I've got an 80 plus right now in my collection, but just didn't want to spend any money. Here was a Hong Kong Dengar. This is another one I'd like to get. That too, I think that price was very reasonable. I see these regularly sell for $150 to $170 buy it now situations for an AFA 85. So to pay $140 plus shipping, I think that was well within market. A few last 17 also sold. This one was an AFA 85 Lando General, brand new casing style. That sold for $400 plus shipping. That's kind of in line. I mean, it might be a little high, but not terribly so. We've seen some sell on that price point pretty regularly. Here was an AFA 85 Yak Face old case style that sold for $890, and that's a good solid 30 to 40% higher than what I paid for my exact same grade Yak Face with the brand new casing style earlier this year. So it's the last 17 figures continue to command really high prices, and this one was no exception. Also, this was a UKG 85% with 90% subgrades. R2D2 pop-up lightsaber last 17 that sold for $938 US or 710 pounds. So the last 17 figures are just popping like crazy. I wanted to sneak in a few mint on card figures that also sold that I just didn't get around to in my last video. This is the same seller that had the 20-back Death Star droid that sold for $810, and I thought was a great deal. He also had this AFA 80 20 back H Jawa with the Boba Fett offer, unpunched, really nice with a sticker, and the subgrades were 75, 85, 85. That one sold for $860. I would have paid that all day long if I had felt like spending some money. So that's a very fair price, I thought. This one shocked me, though. This was from that same seller we've talked about, but it was an uncirculated yellow blister Meccano Jawa square or rectangle card. Beautiful item. These are really, really nice. This one's a little higher grade than my uncirculated 80, but it also had a yellow blister, whereas mine did not. But this one shows quite a bit better. The card condition on this one is substantially better than mine, but it also sold for over double what I paid for mine. This one sold for $1,875, so just a massive price premium for this uncirculated Jawa. It shows really well, though. I mean, it's a gorgeous example, very light yellowing, very desirable item there. So $1,875, took that one home. Another one I thought about bidding on, I thought this would be around $800 as a final sales price, but it sold a little bit lower than expected. This was an AFA 80 FX7 with the Revenge of the Jedi sticker. Really shows nicely with that blue, with the blue colors there, both on the card back and behind the figure, and then on the sticker. Just a beautiful combination with a name pill and everything. Unpunched example, that sold for, again, for $638. That was a fantastic deal. If one of you guys happen to be the ones that bought that, I'm jealous. I would love to have bought that. Really nice. A couple of Made in Mexico figures also sold. AFA 75 Gamorrean Guard. You know, again, it's got the clear blisters. So we just saw one that was an AFA yellowed 85. That was a standard U.S. Kenner card. This one, and that one sold for $456 if memory served. That just came out in yesterday's video. But this one sold for $331, so slightly lower. But it was the Made in Mexico Ledy version. You can see down here in the bottom left-hand corner where it says Made in Mexico. And then above the C-3PO carrying case, you can see the factory punch there on the back of the card. So if you see that, that's a Ledy. If it's got Made in Mexico and it's got that little factory hole above the 3PO, sometimes it's on the 3PO, it just depends, then you got a pretty good deal there on a nice Made in Mexico Gamorrean Guard. Really nice example for $331 plus shipping. And then the 77 back, also Made in Mexico Squid Head. That was an AFA 80, 85 overall. $380 was a great deal on that one, I thought. And again, you can see it in the lower left-hand corner, Made in Mexico. And this one appears to not have that factory punch, which is pretty rare. Almost all of them have a factory punch on the back of the card, like we just showed you on the Gamorrean Guard, but I don't see one on this one, so that's kind of a rarity. You don't see that very often. Most of them have that punch, but really nice example. I think I've got a couple last 17 here also. This was an unpunched AFA 85 Lumat, and that one sold for $575. Yellowed blister, obviously, but beautiful example, unpunched, no stickers. I think it's worth every penny of that $575 number. And then finally, a big boy. This one was an AFA 85 Power of the Force Han Solo in Carbonite. Just a gorgeous example. Very dark yellow blister, but that's a pretty common problem. That one sold for $2,125. 29 bids. That sold 2 days ago in an auction. So big number if you want to get that that Han Solo in his Carbonite. Just really expensive item on the Power of the Force card. So anyway, I had mainly loose graded figures. I wanted to show you some prices. Some good deals on both mint on cards as well as on some more common graded loose graded figures. But the more rare examples and the kind of earlier figures like the blue snags and the double telescoping Luke and some of the last 17 figures, they're just commanding massive premiums despite the slowdown we're seeing in some other parts of the Star Wars collecting universe. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.